Welcome to the BS3 Radio YouTube page. We're recapping the season finale, episode 9 and 10 of The Last Dance. I think one of the greatest documentaries, sports documentaries for sure, that we've ever seen. The way it was put together, the way it was organized. We got Al High. Shout out to Al High. Got the Sox hat on. We got my pops down there. You got the Bulls, the Bull sweatsuit jacket on, and we got Courtney Harden. So how you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Good, very good.
Good. Hopefully we get Tyjun here in just a minute. But let's start off with episode 9. I think one of the way it opened up, which I thought was perfect, with Reggie Miller and Jordan. That clash that they had, that was great talk. You know, Reggie Miller saying, I never called him Michael Jordan ever again. I just called him Black Jesus, so that black cat. So I was laughing when I seen that. Reggie Miller was so skinny. Man, you looked at his rookie year, that guy looked like he weighed like 100 pounds, probably soaking wet. So that was interesting to see. I love that conversation. But let's kick it off with episode 9. We'll start with you, Al. That opening, which I thought was a great opening to see.
Michael Jordan was Black Jesus. That's and when you look back at I didn't realize. I knew that they hated each other on the court, but off the court they had a respect for each other. And looking at that season, you had Larry Bird as the coach. You had a stacked Indiana team, and that was kind of like the team that was going to wanted that torch from Chicago. And that was, if you look at all the series that the Bulls had in the finals, that was one of the toughest series that they had, was with Indiana, and how all of those games were like close each time. Each game was like very close and very competitive. I'll go on here and admit right now, I did cheer for the Indiana Pacers, because I was I was like, I got tired of seeing Joe. I said, let's see somebody different come out here. And man, and them shots that Reggie Miller hit at the end of game 4, I mean, Rick Smith, Mullen, they had the squad to beat the Bulls. And the Bulls were already tired and fatigued and dealing with other elements as well. You know, like this is the last dance and this is it. So just that part about the respect. Hey, this is Black Jesus right now. You know, hey, if you're gonna put him out. It just lets you know the respect and the greatness. You know, that they had respect for Michael Jordan, and didn't underestimate his will and drive to win.
Yeah, exactly. And you could just see how they were exhausted. They were so tired, and the Pacers weren't tired. They were ready to go. Reggie Miller obviously was ready to go. Jalen Rose, you had the young Jalen Rose on that team. I mean, it was great to see. But Dad, talk about that series. I know we remember watching that series. We thought, man, the Bulls can't lose to the Pacers, please.
Right. Well, it was definitely a tough series, and but I just want to start off, being a ordained minister and pastoring for 15 years. I'm a man of God, so I know that Michael wasn't too spiritual or Reggie Miller. But if you know anything about the scriptures, you already know Jesus is black. So it's not like
that's true.
If he was hidden in Egypt and growing up in that area, you already know he's black. So that was something that's kind of funny to me. But also, the physicality and how they were at each other, man. I mean, you're talking about tough. I knew the Davis brothers was tough, but like you say, Reggie Miller, with his, lighting the pan self, he was tough. And, just for the brothers, it's just interesting how they got at each other's throat. Michael Jordan choked him and he threw a punch. Now, in today's NBA, he would have been suspended 2 games. He wouldn't have made it through that final. He wouldn't have made it through that conference final. He would have got thrown out of that game. Plus, he's been suspended for, the next game. So that was interesting how they just let them play, man, and how they went at each other so tough and so hard. But yeah, I love that series because you want to see MJ get tested, and because when he gets tested, that's when he brings out the best,
right?
And the best comes out of him, And it was interesting how not only were they talking trash, but how the fans and everybody in the city was wanting them to beat Chicago so bad that you could just see it. You can just see the disappointment, but how they was going back and forth was great. I really liked that series.
Yeah, that was one of the best series, and that was, even Jordan said it, this is one of the hardest series we ever had in, what he said, 15 years. I mean, that's crazy, the amount of opponents they went through, the Knicks, going through the Cavs, going through the Suns, all the different series that they had. It's been crazy. It's really been crazy. But Courtney, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. What Jordan said in the beginning of that this was his toughest series, he thought. And he went through so many, as you said, he went through the Cavs, he went through the Pistons, he went through the Knicks. So all these series that you thought, he thought they were tough. He said the Pacers was tough. Now he went to a Game 7 with those Pacers, that Pacers team too. So that's why it was a great series actually. And the respect that he gave to Reggie Miller on and off the court, it seemed like it was really that was really interesting. And then to go back to that Pacers team, they were stacked. Like, they were really stacked. I mean, they had the elements to beat that Bulls team. Like, they had the size. You had 7'4" Rick Smits. You had the Davis boys. They're 6'10", physical, tough. They had shot making. They had Reggie Miller, young Jalen Rose, and they had Chris Mullin on that team too.
Yeah,
old Chris Mullin.
Right.
So
right.
that shows, like, okay, this is a Hall of Famer, dream teamer. They can make shots. Just a big time shot maker himself. They also had the speed. They had Travis Best at that time. This guy can handle the ball. He was a backup point guard. And then lastly, they had a veteran point guard, Mark Jackson. So assist man. So they had the team to beat. I thought that was their best shot to beat Jordan and to get to the finals. I know they went to the finals against the Lakers a couple years later, but to me, this was their best team, their best chance. And had Larry Bird as a coach. I mean, they had all the elements, but they had that black cat, that black Jesus, they called him, MJ. I mean, like we said last week, he's the X factor. He is the X factor in a lot of things, and it was just great to see that series, and they pushed the Bulls to the limit.
Yeah, they really did. And one of the things that I thought a very quotable quote was Jordan saying, they still got to come to Chicago. And they were like, well,
yeah.
What do you think? You guys just lost. What are you going to do now? Like, what are you going to do when you lose? It was like, no, don't worry. They still got to come to Chicago. He said that probably 2 or 3 times, which I thought I was going to name my show earlier today that you got to come through Chicago, but I don't know if everybody would have understood. But as I was watching it, man, it was like, it was still that nostalgia, but it was good to see everybody that was interviewed throughout this whole entire documentary. 100 different people were interviewed, which I thought was great. Now let's get to the Jazz series. We already know what that was about. But Jordan basically coming out the blocks like, yeah, Byron Russell was on my list from from a couple years ago when he said I couldn't guard him, and you knew that's why I got the background with the classic jumper. That Byron Russell was talking mad trash, but it didn't matter. This is still Jordan, and he had him on his list. He had Karl Malone on his list because he won the MVP that year. Jordan was just one of those people that had a list, and they checked off. He was like a hitman, basically. Somebody gave him this list and said, "You gotta take care of these people for us." And he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go down the list. I'm even gonna take care of LaBradford Smith out of nowhere, the random guy from the Bullets." But but the opening of that Jazz series, talking about Byron Russell, we've been talking about this throughout each one of these, is just how Jordan was able to get himself ready to play, whatever it took. It wasn't as if and I think that also shows how tired he was, because there was so much stuff that was needed to get him ready, but he got himself ready every single time. So Al, talk about that when you've seen how he had Karl Malone and Byron Russell on his list.
Man, when I found out he had Byron and Karl Malone, this gonna be a long series. Even though Utah in game 1 came out firing, like the Bulls were down, and it took a game-winning jump shot by Michael Jordan. It was a missed free throw by Karl Malone, and it took a game-winning shot by Jordan to set the tone for that series. But that's just the competitive nature of Jordan. It's like some people might think, it's petty. He got a list, of things, of people that makes him upset, but it really was just his drive to win, his drive to win the game. And even if you look at that series, the game 5, the flu game, where we can call the food poisoning game,
right?
Motivation for him to get out there and to show people, yeah, you're not gonna bring me down. I'm about to come up here and I'm about to drop these points on here. We're about to get this dub and head back to Chicago. So it just shows the determination of, you're not gonna bring me down. The determination, the poise to keep going. And it showed to his teammates that, hey, I'm the leader. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to lead, and my team is going to follow me. And I'm going to bring us to the promised land, and we're going to keep going no matter what happens to us, no matter how tired we are, no matter how people we could even say that those fans might have got paid off to help cheat, to help their home team win. Yeah. We could even say maybe that may have been a cheating type deal going on. But no matter what, he was still determined to push forward. And that's why you have the fruit today of 6 rings. And so you got kudos to Michael Jordan in that particular aspect.
Yeah. And you think about Byron Russell, which was an unsigned, I thought he was an unsigned rookie, or maybe he got drafted, but Jordan, it did not matter who you were. It didn't matter how successful of career that you may had. It didn't matter at all. It just came down to, I'm going to shut you down no matter who you are. And I said this on my show earlier today. Karl Malone was king of the mid-range jumper. He stayed hitting that jumper no matter what, no matter who was in his face. No matter if he had to jump over a log, he would have still hit that jumper somehow. That was just his MO, mid-range, king of the mid-range jumper. But Courtney, talk about just the grit going at 2 people. Like, he didn't have 1 person on his list of series. He had 2 people on his list of series.
Like you said, he was like a hitman. Like, he was a sniper. He's like, oh, okay, I'm on the roof. I'm going to snipe these guys, just to pick them all one by one. So it goes to show you how, like you said, the competitiveness of Jordan. We talked about it each show. And it's just the determination. Like from the beginning, he said, oh, Karl Malone's the MVP. Oh, okay, he's on the list. Check mark. I'm going to give him the business. Byron Russell's on the list. This guy, he went at Jordan when Jordan was making his comeback. He said, oh, you are the Michael Jordan? Oh, I can guard you. He said, young rookie or young man, let me show you why I am that black cat. So Jordan just, he like I said, he had a list. He kept it to him, he kept it out there. He even said it. He said it out in public, like, these guys, I'm gonna show these guys who's the boss, who's the best player. I'm still the king of basketball, and he continued to do it. Now Utah, we talked about the Pacers earlier. Utah was tough too because they had that pick and roll that nobody could stop. Stockton and Malone. That was one of the best offensive threats out there. And the Bulls struggled a little bit with them, but, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson, they figured it out. And another thing that they didn't get to the dock, which I thought they should have. I don't know if you guys know the story about when Scottie Pippen, Karl Malone missed that free throw. And Scottie Pippen told him, it was on a Sunday, he told him that the mail doesn't deliver on Sunday. Yeah. So he said the mailman doesn't deliver on Sunday. So, and Karl Malone missed that free throw. And that Jordan hit that jumper in game 1. That sealed their fate right there. So another Bulls championship.
Yeah. It's just crazy to see how he delivered every single time. There's not one player that I can think of that delivered every single time. When he said he was going to do something, he did it. It wasn't like, oh, maybe or hopefully. There was none of that. There was always like, I'm going to do this, no matter what. But Dad, talk about him just going at Hall of Famer, and going at little old Byron Russell that thought he could guard Jordan.
Right. Well, that was interesting because according to the documentary, I think he was playing baseball when he actually ran into him.
Right. Yep.
And that was the interesting thing. Now, we always, speculated what motivated him to come back. Well, he just added that onto the list.
Fuel on the fire.
Yeah, he just added that onto the list. This rookie talking about, why did I quit? Because he can guard me. I don't think so. But he, I give him some props. He did pretty good. Considering his defense ability, he hung in there as long as he could. But the interesting thing about that series, I don't know if you're going to touch on it, is that the actual competition between Rodman and Malone.
Yes.
Now that was interesting.
Yes.
Now we always knew Rodman was tough, but he kind of got up under Malone's skin. Because Karl Malone was irritated and agitated because Rodman was on him. And we look at the league today and we talk about how they flop and how James Harden flop and how, but Rodman, he was the king of flops, man. I'm telling you.
He would go all out too.
He would go all out, man. And he got Malone irritated because he was flopping, and then Malone, that steal at the end where Jordan got that steal and came down and hit that winning shot, is because he was so focused on Rodman that he forgot, Michael was on his back, on his right side, on his blind side.
Right.
I like the way Michael said, we've been studying, watching them in film, and we knew they were going to go to that play. But that was the interesting part, to me. And you guys touched on all the motivational points and how he used Brian Russell, what he said to motivate him, But I thought that was interesting how, and then Rodman, he tended to enjoy, not only instigate Malone, but irritating the fans too. I mean, he was into it, man. I mean, this guy, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Rodman was truly Rodman. And I think the best part about that is Phil Jackson understood that this is who this guy is. We've seen from the early episodes that Phil was a similar player in person, compared to Rodman. So we seen that there was a bond there, and that bond helped them throughout that entire season and with the playoffs, which we'll talk about Dennis, going to WCW and facing off with Hulk Hogan, which that was crazy. But the flu game, how many of y'all knew that it was a stomach bug and it wasn't the flu? Because I honestly thought he just had the flu. I thought he had the common cold, you could say, and he had a stomach bug from eating the pizza that 5 people delivered. Yeah, 5 people delivered it. He ate the whole pizza himself, so it wasn't like, everybody else got sick, which interesting how that whole thing happened. What if everybody would have ate the pizza? Like, who knows what would have happened at that point?
Oh, wait.
But, we can't – we got to call it the flu. We got to call it the stomach ache game. But the flu game sounds a whole lot better. I think we just got to leave it at that. But Courtney, man, talk about, did you know, and everybody chime in, did you know that it was a stomach flu?
I've read it, but it was not definitive. I had read it maybe a couple of years ago, but I thought okay, maybe he had a stomach bug and the flu. I always thought it was a flu game too, so just like everybody else. But I didn't know what he had ate and anything like that, so none of the details. They just said he ate something, he got sick, and he still had the flu. So I'm like, okay, so it's still the flu game. Well, as you said, it's now should be the pizza game or the stomach bug game. Yeah, right. Stomach bug game. So 5 guys delivering 1 pizza, or and then they're looking to see in his hotel room, see if they can get a glimpse of Michael Jordan. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is an odd story. And when his trainer was saying that, Michael Jordan was hungry, he was tired, he wanted something to eat. So they said, oh, Mike wants something to eat. We got to give him something to eat. Utah shuts down early. There's nothing to eat, so just that pizza joint. That's all they said. And so they go and get this pizza. It's poison. So he gets sick, gets, stomach bug. But he goes out there, you say he's tired, he's sweating really bad, and on top of that, he's not feeling well. So he goes out there and delivers one of his best performances, especially with those last 3 championships. 38 points, dominates again. And one of my favorite iconic pictures that every time I see is when Scottie Pippen is carrying him, Jordan and him hugging each other, carrying him to the bench after he hits that jump shot and that 3-point shot. And then I was like, wow, this every time. And I love that iconic picture in that video, because that just shows you how much Jordan determination and he willed that team, and how much respect his teammates ended up having for him. So yeah, that was just a great moment, and it just that's another thing on Jordan's resume, how great he was.
Yeah, so true. Man, that game goes down as one of the best ever, and he was sick. I mean, he had, you got to think, when you got the stomach flu, you feel queasy all the time. It's probably coming out of both ends. This is to be real about it. It's not a good feeling at all. And he played as if it was just a regular game for him. But I think one guy said it. He had a quote, and he said, Jordan lived in the moment. Like, a lot of people had to get up for moments. They had to get built up for the moment. Jordan was in the moment, every time. And that again just continues to talk about the greatness of Jordan. But that's something new that I learned. And I think a lot of people were like, what? First of all, he had a pizza the night before. And then second of all, it was a stomach bug. And yes, he was poisoned by Lonnie's Pizza in Logan, Utah, wherever that was.
Yeah.
So obviously that pizza place is probably going to be famous now if they ever release the name of it, if it's still open, for poisoning Michael Jordan. But Dad, talk about that. Did you know that it was the stomach bug?
No, I didn't know. That's why this documentary is so informative, because I wasn't aware that he had food poisoning. And being the skeptic that I am, growing up in the area that I grew up in,
right?
To me, it was nothing that was accidental. This was intentional.
Yep.
And they were trying to take Michael out because they knew the only way they can beat him was to take Michael out. Now, Utah, the fans of Utah has a history of, I know this is a Mormon state, and they have a history of not treating African Americans kindly, and I'll try to be as kind as I possibly can. But the 4 guys delivering, I want to know who the 4 guys were, because it was almost like armed guards. We want to make sure that this pizza get to Michael's room,
right? And
we want to make sure he's there, and we want to make sure he's the one that eats it. Now, the interesting thing also is that no one else ate the pizza.
Right.
I'm not saying his trainer or anyone else that was on his team was aware of what was going on, but Michael was the one that was hungry. So you had these 4 or 5 guys delivering the pizza, almost like armed guards, to make sure that this particular poison pizza get to Michael.
Right. And
when they got it to him, they peeping in and making sure he's there, because they want to make sure that he receives, the poison or the ill will scheme. I like to call it the plot. It's called, Pizzagate. That was intentional. That was intentional. Right. So to me, it's like, okay, now that we know what went down, I'm calling for an investigation. I'm telling you.
Right. We're Johnny Cochran. We're Al Sharpton at. So.
I don't know who they were. I want to know what the 4 guys, what was their history. I want to check out their criminal history. I need a background check. I mean, this probably done went through the statute of limitations by now, but still, I want to know. And I don't know if you're going to touch on Jerry Sloan, but to me, everybody knew Michael was sick. Now, for him to say, well, I didn't even know he was sick. He was sick. To me, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Not only did he know, but it was a cover-up, man. Come on.
Come on,
it was
man.
A cover-up. He knew about the trick. He knew about the poison.
Right.
He's gonna claim dumb. I mean, if he would have said, well, I knew about it and I thought he had the flu, I would have said, okay, fine. I would accept that. But for him to deny it, not even knowing, and kind of shrug it off with a little smile, a little grin, and they were in Utah. So, the media, And Utah's not going to press him on it. You know, they just let him slide with that comment. It's like, come on, man. To me, it was obvious what went down.
Yeah, when I seen that, I was like, come on, Jerry, you smarter than that. You smart. You've been in this game for a long time. It's in Utah. You know Jordan. If you got Scottie Pippen carrying him, literally like carrying him off the court, you know, Jordan's basically moving his legs, but that's about it. You got to think like something's wrong. So Jerry Sloan was trying to play dumb. And rest in peace to Jerry Sloan. He passed, you know, and also Jerry Krause has passed since then. But Al, talk about the stomach gate or flu, whatever we want to call it now from now on.
I was doing some research, a little bit of research last night after the show. And my question is, usually most players have an alias name or another name that they use while they're traveling. So they won't have people knocking on the door. Oh, this is Michael Jordan's room. We're going to deliver pizza. My question is, number one, why didn't Michael Jordan use his alias name to order the pizza? Yeah. And Michael Jordan, you know, call yourself a different name. And the team had a certain list of different names, but he never used his name that night. Then I think the other curiosity about this was nobody else in the room ate the pizza. If I'm in the room and I smell some pizza, I'm gonna want a slice of pizza.
Right.
Right.
True.
I like trying different foods, but for nobody else, and Michael ate all the slices of pizza, I got a question about that one.
Yeah. And the story was said that he spit on the pizza because everybody else ate without him. So I think that's the reason why. He ate all of it. But and the further question is, what if everybody else ate it? Like what if Scottie ate some? What if Kukoc ate some? What if Steve Kerr ate some? You got to think. Not all of them. I don't know if all of them would be able to make it through that and withstand playing with that stomach bug. So to me, that was another interesting part about it. But go ahead, Al. I cut you off.
No, you're right. It's just the interesting element. Like it all day long, and then I didn't know. I always thought it was the flu game for years, and then I want to say maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I realized it was food poisoning, and I'm like, okay, this makes sense now because he didn't want. You know, they talked about that he didn't want any IVs. All he just stayed hydrated on was water and Gatorade.
Yep.
They need all day, and he was not a person who liked needles. So, and then to be refreshed in Game 5, I'm like, man, this must have been a quick bug, a quick flu, a very quick. So, with that being said, and then the part about the Utah fans are very hostile towards different color people, because they want their team to win. They want their team to be great. You know, all that went into play, that element. Yeah. So and then the hilarious part was Jerry Sloan saying, "I didn't know Michael was sick. I think he was just pissed off because his team lost." And
he was coming up with excuses. He was coming out of the bag with excuses. And then the game after that, when they lost 96-54, he was like, "Oh, is this the stat sheet? You've been on the sideline the whole time. You know that's the stat sheet." He must have been the king of excuses when it came to coaches because he was pulling them out of the bag that series. But,
and even before that, I was going to say with Jerry Sloan, when he said that about Jordan, or, you know, I didn't know he was sick. He probably said, well, I don't know the difference. Jordan torched us anyway, regardless, sick or not sick. So, you know, maybe he wasn't sick. Maybe that's what he thought. Like you said, he knew. He just said, well, Jordan beat us. He scored 38 in his sleep, so it didn't matter.
And Dad, to your point with Dennis versus anybody is good. But Dennis versus Karl Malone, I think was great because they're two different personalities. Karl Malone was like straight laced. I don't know if I'll probably say I've seen him upset, but I don't know if I've ever seen him like cuss out anybody or be. He seems so mellow, but Dennis can get under anybody's skin. It didn't matter who you were. He got under everybody's skin, and that was him. That's the reason why he was so successful. And he played his role. His role was to be the agitator, to be that person, to get the person he's defending, get them riled up and get them frustrated and get them out of rhythm, get them out of their game. So Dennis was perfect for that. He was a perfect person to do that. So Courtney, talk about that. Dennis versus Carl Malone with a K.
Carl with a K, yes. That was interesting because I remember their battles in those 2 championships. And like you said, Rodman was an instigator, and he started when he was in Detroit. He did it against the Bulls. He did it against them. He did it, he punked them. That's what he basically did. I mean, he threw, the dirty play he did against Scottie Pippen. He threw him up against the basket, and Pippen was hurt, and he started all that. So it started with the bad boys. He went on. He did it. He was a real instigator to Alonzo Mourning. He really got Alonzo Mourning under his skin a lot. Alonzo Mourning used to get so frustrated at him and try to go right at him. He wanted to punch Dennis Rodman. So he went against Karl Malone. Now we know Karl Malone, one of the strongest players we've ever seen, 6'9", 250, 260. This guy was just strong, like really a strong player. But Rodman got under his skin too, and you could tell it was frustrating Karl Malone. Even though Karl Malone, he had a great series. He had both series. He had a great series against the Bulls, but Rodman that was his role, to instigate, to rebound, play tough defense, be the bad guy. So Rodman got the better hand of Karl Malone.
Definitely. Let's talk about the Steve Kerr backstory, which I thought this was perfect. This was in episode 9. It talked about his dad. It talked about his family, and it talked about the bond that him and Jordan had. But also, I didn't know Steve Kerr's dad. I didn't know anything about that aspect of him. And so it was great to see them dive deep into Steve Kerr, the reason he is why he is, and the reason why he is a coach and why he's successful. And Steve Kerr, to me, was definitely an unsung hero on this team. When we talk about this Last Dance, he mirrored his game after John Paxson. I thought that was, you think about these guys, they've been in the league for a minute. Most of these guys on this team, this was not their first year. This was not as if they were rookies. They've been in the league for a minute. They've seen each other for a minute. Jordan was instrumental, I believe, in getting Steve Kerr. Jordan was probably instrumental in getting a lot of people there. Jerry Krause, we already know the input that he had. But Dad, you mentioned something earlier in the weekend wrap-up show. I wanted you to touch on that, just about how the both of them with their dads and how they were able to build that bond.
Right. Well, the interesting thing is, I didn't know about, his father getting killed in Beirut. And he was, actually a college professor. I think he was also president. He was the president. And interesting thing to me is the contrast between the two fathers. Steve Kerr, when they interviewed him, he basically didn't want to make any insinuations, but I can tell that he was a little disappointed, that right after graduating from high school, I think, his dad went to Beirut and took this position. Mm-hmm. So in contrast, you have Michael Jordan's dad that was there for him 100% all the time, supporting him. So the contrast between the fathers and their support of their son. And then you look at how they both were murdered, basically, when they were young men. So, to me, coming from the spiritual aspect, even though Steve Kerr said they never mentioned it to each other, they never discussed their fathers and their fathers passing in the way they passed. So to me, they had a spiritual connection, because when you look at how, Steve Kerr always has this dry humor, coming from the Warriors coach, we know he has this dry humor. And sometimes if you don't understand Steve Kerr, you can kind of get irritated, about, where are you going with this dry sense of humor that you have? And the way that, him and Jordan bonded, he was able to crack jokes when they were receiving at the parade, right. About, he made the comment like, well, I got to bail Michael out again. So, and Michael just cracked up, so you're like, wow, Michael took that, as humor, when normally tough Michael Jordan, would have been, insulted, but he took it as humor. So it's almost, to me, coming from the spiritual aspect, because of their upbringing, the way their fathers were murdered, they had this spiritual connection. And you can tell, even in the game, how they were like brothers, basically. Brothers always fight. So once they got into that fight at practice, right, it was like, okay, you my brother from another mother at this point. Right. And just how they connected when Steve Kerr hit that shot, and normally, Michael, I'm going to take the last shot. It was like he was okay with it. He supported them. He encouraged it. So they had that connection because, we always believe as Christians and believers that there's no accidents, there's no coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. Right. And because it was a tragedy in both of their lives, and because their father was murdered in totally different circumstances, and because of the contrast in their upbringing, it was something that brought them together spiritually. And it was because of Steve Kerr to hit that shot, which basically took care of that game in itself. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was really, it was like they didn't really talk about it, but that bond was strong. And right, if Jordan is able to look over to somebody and say, be ready, like that is ultimate trust, because Jordan, right, you could tell how he evolved throughout his career, because before he would take the shot. But then we look at John Paxson hitting the jumper to help him win a game. We look at Kukoc hitting the jumper to help him win a game. We look at how Scotty evolved into a top 50 greatest player of all time. Like, all of that factored into that moment with him saying, Kerr, you can shoot that shot. And that bond, I think, is great. And it was great to see that. But Al, talk about that, and what did you learn from that, about Steve Kerr? Because it was kind of eye-opening to me about it.
Well, just like Steve Kerr and his upbringing and his parents being professors and always going out to play sports, that he enjoyed doing that, and how he played with a chip on his shoulder, because he only got one offer for college. Mm-hmm. Well, one full ride, and that was to Arizona. And just playing like, hey, taking advantage of every opportunity that was given to him. And I know how we talked about earlier, how he's been a champion on every level. Went to the Final Four in college, has a championship rings as a coach, has been a great general manager. He's one of them people. Look, I'm not Michael Jordan. I'm just on my role. I'm doing my job. And that motivation came from the death of a passing of his parent, and that really hurt him. So that the death of his father really helped him propel to a different level, basketball wise. He was able to take that part and really, form his craft to be a better player, to be the best player. And then on top of that, you had a person by the name of John Paxson. You learning from Paxson after Michael Jordan retired. So you're learning from Paxson during Paxson's last year, understanding your role, and then Michael Jordan comes back. And so now you're like the new Paxson in there. But you're Steve Kerr. So just that aspect, just those two aspects of playing with a chip on his shoulder, mastering his craft and really focused, and then being there. It's kind of like, I will call you off for something. Hey, I need you. Okay, I'm gonna be here for you, or you be here. However we do it. If I'm here for you, hey, be ready. I'm gonna need you. Right. And just to go out there and to perform when somebody needs you, hey, then you put that in it. Yeah. So that was very touching, and very, and I can Mr. Sudderth said earlier, at that spiritual aspect and how they were able to connect with that was really good. Yeah.
I thought that was really, really special, and we've seen so much with Jordan that we've seen him open up about a lot of different things, but also seeing players open up about him, I think it was also great, because we hear the stuff about Jordan was a bad teammate, or he wasn't nice to me, he didn't give me, He didn't give me my water bottle after the game was over with and stuff like that. But it was good to see the touching stories because Jordan was a real person. He just wanted to win, and he wanted you to come along with him. He didn't do it alone. He never said that I did this alone by myself. He brought guys along, brought it up to his level. But Courtney, was there anything else you wanted to add as far as the Steve Kerr backstory, his relationship with Jordan?
Yeah, just to add what Al said, it was more of that connection that they had. Jordan trusted him. He trusted him for that last shot. After they had their dust up their fight, Jordan said, "Okay, this guy's tough. This guy, he has the will to win." So the aspect of Jordan trusting his teammates, like he trusted Scottie Pippen. So then he went on and trusted Steve Kerr, he trusted Chuck Buechler, and trusted all these guys that wanted to ride with him, and that will to win. Jordan said, "I want to win at all costs. I want to continue to play at a high level, and I want you guys along for the ride." So it was just great to see that backstory of Steve Kerr. I never knew that backstory of his, but that connection that him and Jordan bonded towards the end of their careers, it was great to see. Yeah,
I thought that was really special. So let's, as we kind of segue, we talking about dads. Gus, his security. I'm not gonna call him a security guard, but I mean he was a part of his security team. Wherever Jordan went, that's where Gus went. I thought that was another great aspect because we know that Jordan's dad passed. And while we're talking right now, let's welcome in Mack. I think he's coming on here in just a few seconds. But it was great to see how Gus had a relationship with Jordan, and it was a father figure type relationship. It probably started off like, "Hey, we're cool. This is Gus," but eventually you could see how that bond grew, and then Gus, ended up having cancer, and then he ended up later on passing, which they talked about his period there. But I thought that was great to see, and again, another side of Jordan that's human. And then his wife came on and talked about how he was supportive, that he was there by his side, and I thought that was great to see. Ty, I know you just jumping on, but if you could hear what I just said there, I think you're on mute. If you can, oh, there you go. I think. All right, so talk about that and welcome.
Hey, welcome here. Hi everybody. I know I'm late. My bad.
You good?
Yeah, you know what? That was that part that they showed was something that I didn't know about Jordan at all. How he became like so close to a security detail, and in essence, like, Gus becoming like a father figure, and those things that you don't see, such as like him going to the hospital, him like noticing little things about him getting sick and things like that. Like you can tell that he had a really, really tight relationship with Gus, which was dope. And for me, I think it shows that even as adults, like us men, even as adults, like we still look to our elderly to for advice and and develop relationships and spiritual guidance and all those different things, right? So even though his biological father had already passed, he saw somebody else who was able to give him those same things that his father couldn't no longer give him. And he started to cling to that. So I thought that was, as you stated, a human aspect of Jordan. We always see like just the competitive part, but this is like really like the compassionate, emotional side of Jordan, which, a lot of people just don't understand. So.
Right. True. Al, talk about that point and, you being a father also, just how important that is to have that fatherly figure, even if it's not your actual dad. We all have that person that was a teacher or a counselor or something that was also a good ear, a good person in our ear.
Well, I'm gonna come from a different perspective. My dad was not there for me growing up. There was some issues going on in my household that was out of my control. My mom been deceased about 15, 16 years now. But I had people in my corner who were mentors, from Boy Scouts to my mom's time in ministry. There was other men who helped to raise me into the man that I am today. it's very important that we have those type of mentors, those type of people to lean on to get an understanding of how to live this life. All of us on here are always still learning. There's some things that we're not perfect at, that part is needed. That part in life as a man in particular, like sometimes it can be, for me, overwhelming because I have a 12-year-old daughter, so that could be overwhelming sometimes. What am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right stuff? Especially with girls, because girls are very sensitive. Girls are very emotional, so you have to watch some things you say and some things you do. And so definitely with like mentors who helped me out over the years and have stepped into place, I won't forget those men. Even times I had disagreements with them at the time, I thought I knew everything. And then looking back, I'm like, dang, that person was there for me. So in the case of Michael Jordan, having this security guard who he was around most of the time, all over, when they was traveling throughout the year, he was always with him. For him to step in and take a fatherly role, that meant a lot to Jordan. And for Jordan to soak that knowledge and that understanding, man, because Michael Jordan, he was grieving. And so that's just a lesson just as giving to others and to be able to receive and not to be like, oh, I don't need nobody. I can do it this way. And even at my age, I still am not perfect, but I'm thankful for the people who are around me to help me see my wrongdoings or let me know that they're proud of me and not to be too hard on myself.
Yeah, man, that's a real talk right there. We having some real talk now. Okay, hopefully y'all taking down some notes. We got some real knowledge and some real talk going on. But Dad, anything else you want to touch on as far as Gus and as far as his instillment and what he was putting into Jordan and advice he was giving him?
Right. Well, you guys touched on basically his relationship. I just thought it was interesting how it was a love relationship that went both ways. When Michael was grieving about his father, I like when his wife, Gus' wife, said he would call at 2:00 in the morning, crying, and that Gus would go over to his place, get up out of his bed and go over to console, MJ when he was grieving. And then when Gus was sick, MJ was there. And the interesting thing, I brought it to my wife's attention last night that he had, if I'm not mistaken, lung cancer, I think.
Right.
Gus. Yeah. Was that correct?
Yeah, that was correct.
Okay. So I noticed that there was an indentation in his head, almost like he had, brain cancer as well. Uh-oh, my battery's low. I'm still there. Yeah. So I'm not sure if something was going on, also, with his brain, but, just to know that he was a retired, police officer, and that, he took his job serious when it came to, taking care of MJ. And it was interesting to see how he, MJ had this entourage. It was like bodyguards, man. He was probably the only player that had bodyguards. And Gus, was the captain or the lieutenant of, his entourage, his bodyguards, and how he was always there and he was always, protective of him because he truly loved them, man. He truly wanted to make sure that no one got close, that was not authorized to get close, and for him just to be there for him. I mean, that was probably the most touching part. And then MJ said, well, you're gonna travel with us, right? We can't do it without you, And for him to be kicked back, he kicked back. This man is clean, right? He got his suit on, man. And right. He kicked back with the cigar and all the other players in the locker room, and he got his own private room, kicked back. Mm-hmm. And Gus is right there guarding the door, And that was interesting to see that bond, and you can just tell they really loved each other.
Yeah. And then that one moment that they showed it a couple times where there was reporters or people trying to get to Jordan, and Gus was like, "Can y'all move back over here, please?"
Yeah.
He was like, "Don't make me have to put hands on any of y'all, kids and everybody. I will do it." Yes. He was one of those people, but he was very protective, man, and Jordan might have been the first player with an entourage. You know, LeBron has his crew. He's got Maverick Carter, and he's got his agent. You know, they got the Banana Boat crew. I mean, he might have been one of the first players that really had a crew because he needed it. I mean, everywhere he went, there was people all over him, each and every opportunity, every way. But let's we talk about game one. Jazz win game one. The Bulls, they win game two. The Bulls win game three by that blowout game. And then after game three, we're about to talk about this. Somebody decided that they wanted to go to WCW and wrestle with Hulk Hogan in his pajamas, by the way. I don't know how much money he got paid, but he must have got paid a lot of money. In his pajamas with Diamond Dallas Page. We going back to the WCW days, which that was great.
The 90s, yes.
90s wrestling. But, man, Courtney, talk about that and getting snuck in and out of the arena. The dude's like, yeah, we know Dennis don't want to talk to the media, so he that dude was pissed. That dude was highly upset that he had to be involved in helping Rodman get out of there. But Courtney, talk about that. We know that happened, but it was good to see the different people talk about it at the same time.
Yeah, it was really good to see. It's funny, because if somebody did that today's NBA, they would be suspended. They would, the social media would get involved, and it's like, there was no social media back then, so this Rodman got away with a lot of different things. And it's interesting that Phil Jackson, he was really mad too. He was upset for the moment, and then after he's like, Dennis probably needed that rest. He probably needed to get away or whatever. It's just the way he did it. Like, he just skipped practice. He wanted to be at that time he was Hollywood Hogan too. So he was Hollywood Hogan. Then he was with the NWO. He had all that, so the black and the white and all that. So yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan, so I knew all about that. But yeah, Rodman was doing that. It was no surprise. It was just like the same thing he did a couple of years ago when he went to Vegas. He needed a break, and went to Vegas and partied it up for 48 hours. So Rodman left. But he came back and, they ended up winning the championship. So I guess no harm, no foul, but it was Dennis Rodman. So he just likes he likes to party. He likes women. He loves, he just loves all types of things. So he was an interesting character. Phil said, okay, as long as he comes to play, and Rodman even said himself, when I come to play, I'm coming to play.
Yeah, and that's what he did, no matter what.
That's what he did. Yeah,
that didn't default his game. Yeah. No,
he came to play, and the Bulls accepted him for who he is, and he was going to do it anyway. I think he was already checked out too. So that was just one of those things. He said, "I'm gonna win a championship and be out of here." So yeah, it was interesting to see.
Yeah. Ty, talk about that, man. We know we were WCW fans. Goldberg, man, Sting, all of those guys, WCW and that whole crew. I wasn't a big Hogan fan when he went to WCW, but that's another story.
Yeah, man, that was actually the good years of WCW, man, where they had the NWO, you had the black Sting, you had the all black with the white face paint,
with the bat, the baseball bat,
with the baseball bat. Right. You had Diamond Dallas Page, but they showed the clip of him beating up Diamond Dallas Page with the chair, walking down to the ring. Man, to me, it just showed for like Rodman, right? Because Rodman literally just left the game and went straight to wrestling, right? Which is crazy, but it showed like how he was able to really like balance all those things, right? So like he was one of them people who needed those outside distractions, sort of, to like perform on the court, right? Because like that next game he had like 17 rebounds or something. He went like crazy on the boards. Yeah, right. He went like crazy, but. Like, regardless of everything that was going on around him, he was always able to perform on the floor, right? He got on the floor, and whenever the ball tipped off, like, he was 100% focused on what was going on the floor. So I thought that was just interesting how, like, the whole team kind of, like, dealt with that distraction, per se, with the media, with, like, everybody kind of, like, talking about it and coming on the floor and trying to just get stuff done. So that's what they did, right? They came in, they ended up winning that game. But yeah, man, Rodman was wild. We already knew Rodman was wild. He had been wild for years. It's just another story, for him to tell his kids, and just
exactly.
crazy.
Exactly. So they go into game 4. They win that one, game 5. Game 6, Pippen with the back issues. This was the hardest series for them. Jordan with the stomach flu, Pippen with the back. You could see Pippen was galloping up and down the court. He was still getting rebounds. I'm sure they didn't have all the medical miracles that we have now, shots and all this type of stuff that we have. So you got to think how hard it was for Pippen. They went through all these difficulties. They end up winning the series. But Al, I wanted you to touch on that with Pippen. We know the greatness of Pippen, but just how he evolved. You know, you talk about that game where he didn't want to go in the game when Jordan was gone. You know, to now, or not to now, but to win in that series, they all went through a lot. Pippen went through that struggle. In the back, everybody knows back issues don't go away, and when it does hit, it almost like paralyzes you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was a maturity. You know, I had learned from the playoff year in 1994 when he sat out and was like, I'm not going to be on this last play because I'm not getting the ball. And retrospect, thinking about it now, everybody knew this was the last shot. We're up 3-2 on these guys. We need all hands on deck. We need all hands on deck to win this particular game. Oh, by the way, Dennis Rodman made $250,000 for that appearance on WCW.
Straight cash. Put it in the bag.
Cashed out, straight cash. Yep.
Cash.
But I think everybody knew the writing was on the wall. Okay, this is game 6. This is do or die. We're up 3-2. We are tied. If we settle down, if in anybody's mind, had he would have sat, would he have been ready to play game 7? Think about that mindset. Right. So he was like, we got to give all this. Let's go ahead and give all this attention right now to this particular game, and let's just move forward. Let's just focus and let's move forward. And he gave a valiant effort. You know, at the day, Black Jesus, you know, hit the game-winning shot, but it was points before that. Had Michael not been, had Scotty's back not been, you know, had Scotty been more healthy, I mean, they probably would have beat Utah by a greater margin. But, you know, Scotty stepped up. You know, Dennis made a couple of key rebounds and tough shots, and the rest was history. But I think it was just the mindset of maturity. Like, hey, this is it right now. We're not going to wait till game 7 because we might not be our best in game 7. This is our win or go home mindset right now.
Exactly.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's also a part of, like, when you see a championship team, that's like that urgency, right? So that's like knowing that, like, look, like, this is our moment. We got to take advantage of it, because if we don't, we might not win this series, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it reminds me of the Warriors when we blew the 3-1 lead, right? That urgency that you need to finish a series. Right?
The deal, yeah.
To finish the deal. And it's crazy because even when you look at that Warriors series, Iggy went down with back spasms, right? And we never recovered from it. Yep. Right? We never recovered from it. Even that game 7 when Iggy was playing, like, his back, he had no lift. Like, that could have been Utah in Chicago right there. That could have been the same thing, you know, and seeing Pippen gut that out was like, it was just amazing performance. Even though he didn't really do much, you know, as far as, like, you know, scoring and things like that, you know, just him being on the floor helped everything that was going on the floor. So it allowed, you know, Jordan to get more space, other people to get shots up and things like that with just his presence being on the floor. So
right. And like Pippen said, I was a decoy the whole game. Like, I wasn't in there to be scoring buckets or playing D. I was in there just to get in people's way.
Yeah.
And to fall on the floor and so people had to jump over me. But a perfect thing in there was when Phil, you know, Pippen was laying down on the table and they're like, Pippen is maybe out for a back injury. Phil goes straight up to that TV like, nope, we're not about to listen to that. We're going to go ahead and change that channel. Classic Phil, man. Phil, I seen this photo, which just to bring it in all together, Phil had 6 with the Bulls, 5 with the Lakers. with the Knicks. Like, to me, Phil doesn't get enough praise. Like, we need to be putting Phil on the Mount Rushmore of coaches, period. Like, not just basketball. 13 championships. The dude has an extra 3 rings that he could wear, that he could put on his feet if he wanted to. He could get those 3 to his wife, and she could wear those on a daily basis. I mean, it's the greatness of Phil is not, I think, goes it goes untalked about in a lot of arenas. Now, let's get to this point. We know they won. It's all over with. The biggest thing about this series is now, like, the what ifs. What if they came back for another year? We talk about how Reinsdorf went over Jerry Krause's head, called Phil, like, hey, let's do it again. It feels like, well, you know, I've been thinking about it, and I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I don't think he wanted to deal with Jerry Krause, but I think what if? I mean, like, what if they would have came back? What if the whole band was together back again and they came back? So, Dad, I want you to touch on that first. Just if they would have all came back, what do you think the outcome would have been? And now this is the biggest question mark probably ever today. You know, that's one of the biggest question marks that everybody's talking about.
Well, you know, if they would have came back and they would have kept the whole team together, you know, I think they would have made another run for a championship. Because when you look at the actual, you know, finals and how Scotty wasn't 100%, then basically, you know, they were playing without him. So if they had him 100%, even though Mike would have been another year older, and they would have kept Rodman and Steve Kerr and all the other role players together, I think they could have won another one. They may have won, you know, a couple more, because as they mentioned, that next season was a lockout season, so they only played like 50 games.
Right.
So that would have helped with the health issues and the age issues. So I think they could have made a run for another one. But, you know, it's interesting how, you know, management, you know, sometimes they can get in the way of a good thing because of egos, and also because of, you know, the actual, you know, the finance part of it. You know, right. Michael said, you know, I was already on 1-year deals, you know, so give everybody else another 1-year deal just to make another run at it. But I think the bridge had already been burned with you know, with the coach and Crouch, and, you know, just the whole thing, how that went down. You know, I don't think, because of pride, I don't think he was able to, you know, to be able to sit up under him again for another year because of what he did to Phil and how he disrespected him with the whole part about, you know, you can go 82-0 and, you know, still, you know, you're gone. So I think that hit him, you know, where it really hurts. You know, it's like, you know, now you disrespected me. You know, it's like you say, Phil Jackson, the history that he has as far as a coach, he didn't have that history then. But I mean, what other coach could keep those guys together, man? You know, after what Scotty didn't want to go in, and then, you know, Scotty comes up with a backache and with back problems, and Phil handled it perfectly. You know, I was like, oh, okay, here we go again. So you can't play Scotty, seriously, you know. And then with the Dennis Rodman thing, I was like, oh, man, here we go again. But Phil was able to keep all that together. But it's just that relationship with Jerry Krause, man. I think, you know, he just burned that bridge. But I think they would have won another one if everybody would have came back.
Yeah, I agree. I think they would have won at least one more, because then you got to think there are drafts going on. There's free agency. They could have been like the Warriors. People would have been flocking to go there. It's not as if that if they would have lost somebody, that somebody else would have been able to come in that could probably do the same thing or possibly better. But Ty, I'll go to you. Man,
you know, it would be interesting. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, as Jordan said, like, he would have loved to get, you know, to kind of check it out that next year. You know, that following year, the Knicks made it to the finals. Sprewell was in New York doing damage. And I remember a lot of people was high on Sprewell. Man, Sprewell was a defensive monster. Like, not only, like, he came into the league as a defensive player. That New York team was really good, you know. And you look at that path that that the Bulls probably would have had to take. Indiana, probably getting Indiana again. I think Miami was really good that season. Like I said, New York. I mean, they would have it would have been a tough win, and then to get the Spurs with the Twin Towers. I don't know if they beat the Spurs. I truly don't know if they beat the Spurs. But Jordan. But somehow Jordan always kind of stepped it up. When it came time, he kind of stepped up his game. You never know, but it would have been good to see. I would have liked to see him play them Spurs because Tim Duncan and David Robinson was killing in the West. They was killing everything. So yeah,
there was nobody getting past them. That's true.
Nah, they was killing.
True. Al, I'll bring it to you. What do you say on this?
There would have been a passing of the torch, and you had the Knicks made that run. Patrick Ewing was dealing with injuries because they were the 8th seed, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they upset Miami that year. Was the 1 seed?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. But you had Indiana. You had an up and coming Philadelphia team. You had Orlando, who was coached by Chuck Daly. But I think if the Bulls would have been intact and came back, there would have been a torch. That would have been a torch passing season to the Pacers or the Knicks. I think with the Knicks, had Patrick Ewing been fully healthy for that full year, they probably would have finished even stronger than the 8th seed. But as far as everybody knew this was the last year, and I think Reinsdorf should have stepped in earlier and not Jerry Krause, kept opening his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Reinsdorf have said something immediately after they won the 5th title.
Yeah.
And look, boys for 2 years and whatever differences you have, let's work it out. However, if they would have did that, would there have been a Lakers dynasty? We got to think about that part as well. Would Phil have taken that Lakers role? Because if you look at Phil Jackson in history of coaching, every time he has taken a break, after his 6 championships, he took a break, came out, won 3, retired, came out of retirement, and the Lakers won 2 more. So had, let's just say hypothetically, he would have came back. He would have stayed with the Bulls. Would there be a talk of Kobe and Shaq right now where they are as Hall of Famers?
True.
It wouldn't have.
Yeah. That's a big thing, man. When we talk about how the domino blocks and how they would have or would not have failed, that could have changed history right there. And I know a lot of us would have wanted to see it. I would have loved to wanted to see it. But Al, you hit the nail on the head. Jerry Krause was complacent, man. This is one of the greatest teams, arguably the greatest team, and you just let it fall to Jerry Krause, the Penguin. You let the Penguin have control of the team, knowing that you could have possibly did it. And I think the other part is too, money is a factor. We know in every single sport, when the team wins a championship, everybody wants to get cashed out the next year. Nobody's going to say, give me a pay cut, unless you have one of those type of teams or one of those type of mindsets. But Ty, I hear you want to say something.
I was about to say, I don't think it was a money issue. I just literally think that Jerry Krause had built some dynasties. He built some great teams. And as a great owner lets his GM do what he do, right? Like, it's just at this point, his GM his ego got in the way.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, like his whole ego just got in the way. Like, he destroyed what could have been, like I said, they could have got a 7th championship or an 8th championship, or they could have started rebuilding around just Jordan and Pippen if they could have, convinced Pippen to come back. I think Jordan talked about that. Like, I think I could have convinced Pippen to come back to try to go for a 4th ring, because Pippen was really upset with the organization. He wanted to get up out of there. But, Jordan had that effect. Jordan could talk people into playing with him, right? And so Krause he killed that. He just killed that whole thing, man, by just having too big of an ego, just really believing that, like, hey, I could throw somebody out here and I could rebuild another team. I mean, you got to remember, he went and told Ron Artest that Ron Artest was going to win the championship with the Bulls. Come on, man. Ron, you do not build a team around Ron Artest, man. Come on.
We all know that, yeah.
He ain't that player, But you You ain't convinced Ron Artest that if you win a championship, your championship is worth more than the 6 that they already won. Come on, man, you crazy. Man, that's ego. That's ego right there.
He also thought that he could build a team around Tony Kukoc. Like Tony Kukoc was a good 6-man. He was bringing in that air of the foreign players that don't play D. So you could not build a team around Tony Kukoc. He was fooling himself. He was drinking the Kool-Aid and he thought this is all me. And now we know, fast forward to now, the Bulls have never been the same again. They had a couple good years with D-Rose. That was basically it. What are they doing now? Nobody knows. Courtney, I go to you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody said everything. You know, it's like, I think they could have won that 7th championship if, you know, like you said, if Reinsdorf would have cut that early with Jerry Krause. Like, if he would have just said something to Jerry Krause a couple years before, because after the 6th championship, the Bulls themselves, they were checked out. Phil Jackson was done. He had a paper that said, he had a book that said, "The Last Dance, this is it." Right. He said he didn't want to deal with Jerry Krause no more. And when Reinsdorf asked him, you know, we would come back, he's going over Jerry Krause. Like, he would have to fire Jerry Krause then for Phil Jackson to come back. You know, he would have to do it. And Reinsdorf, I don't think he definitely wouldn't have done that. So Phil Jackson said, "I'm done." Jordan, you know, what was upsetting, when Jordan's still upset to this day, basically saying, I'm still in my prime. Like, I'm at the tail end of my prime years. Let me go out the way I want to go out. Let me go out. Let me see if I can win this championship, the 7th championship. And I think they could have done it. Al brought up a good point with all the teams that were coming up, but there was a lockout season. The Bulls would have been well rested. They would have been ready, I think, for any teams, any gauntlet. The Knicks, and they said the Knicks were the AC, so they get the AC to get into the finals, and they play against the Spurs. The Spurs would have been tough. They would have been tough to guard with Robson, Duncan. They had Sean Elliott that year too, I think, and David Johnson. So that would have been really a tough series. But I think the Bulls could have got through and got that 7th championship. I think the only key thing that probably would have been was Scottie Pippen. Pippen would have got a big contract. I don't know if he would have signed a 1-year deal. He was looking for that long-term deal after having that atrocious contract for so many years. You know, it's like compared to what he got anyway later. Right. But he was looking for 75, 80 million maybe for 4 or 5 years. So I think that would have been the only hiccup. But like Jordan said, the influence of Jordan saying you come back, Steve Kerr had to come back, Chuck Buechler had to come back. I think the Bulls could have got it done at least one more.
Yeah. So the series ends with Kerr talking about how they had a meeting, they had a last kind of meeting around the campfire. Everybody came up with something that they wrote. They talked about it. I was glad that they didn't say what they said, because I think that should have just been kept to them, kept to their hearts, and kept to that group and that core. But there was a lot of touching things said. They put it in the cup and they burned it, and that's it. You know, that's history with this team. So now the question is for everybody as we get towards the end here is what would you have want to see in the documentary? Was there something that you think was left out that you think should have been in it? For me, I would have loved to see something about the Wizards, something like maybe why he chose to go, what the backstory. I would have loved to see that. Give us a bonus episode, please. Give us 11 and 12, please. And then I would have loved to see his ex-wife interviewed. Now they may have to hold her back. I don't know. It might have been like a Jerry Springer episode or something, depending on what kind of terms they're on. Yeah. But those are two things that I would have wanted to see. Ty, anything you wanted to see that was not in the documentary?
I would have liked to see more about the other role players. I mean, they talked about just literally the main players on that squad. I would have liked to see just more about, some of the other role players on the team, and one reason why I felt like they only talked about certain role players because like we were familiar with them. That's why I really wanted to hear about the Scott Burrells and, you know what I'm saying? They didn't say nothing about Randy Brown on the team or, you know what I'm saying?
Cheerleader of the team, right?
Yeah. They didn't say much about like Craig Hodges and, I really would have liked to hear more about those players as well who did contribute. more backstory about Ryan Harper. Like, I thought they should talk more about Ryan Harper and how Ryan Harper transitioned to that point guard position from being a 20-point scorer in Cleveland, right? So, like, stuff like that to really give, more essence to that team, because I think that people think that team was just like Jordan, Pippen, and then Rodman, right? But like all those players on that team could legit play. Like they were really good. They were really good as a unit, right? And they meshed like that 95-96 season when they went 72-10. Like they meshed really, really quickly and just started balling out, right? And you saw them like, and they even got better. Like I think that team that following year was actually better, even though they had a worse record. I think that team that following year was actually better than than 72-10 team, right? So I really wish they would have spoke more about like those key role players and like how they like transition into their roles on that team.
Yeah. Good point. Al, what were some things that you wanted to see?
I would have liked to see a little bit more of them talk about Utah in the second go around for that sixth title, and how they get back to the NBA Finals and their thoughts of playing, because pretty much their season they kind of swept everybody, and were on rest for several days. I would have liked to see, and I would have liked to see a little bit more about what happened with Jordan going to the Bulls. I mean, not the Bulls, but the Wizards. Yeah. And what was his mindset of going into ownership, and then even about where all of the players got traded to. Scotty going a little bit more with Scotty going to Houston, Steve Kerr going to the Spurs, Dennis Rodman getting released. Just a little bit more of that, a little bit understanding of what the mindset was of what was going on then.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would have been good to kind of say, hey, when Scotty went here, this is what Scotty did. This is the role. I mean, 1 minute or so, just a kind of a blurb. Then, with Rodman, I think that would have been good as well. I agree with you 100%. Courtney.
I agree with Al. I wish they would have went more into after the Bulls won that championship. They went to Jordan when he went to the Wizards. And was a player president as he was, and then I wish they would have got more into that. And then him not being the best GM owner with the Charlotte Hornets. I wish they would have got more into that too afterward. And another thing, I wish they would have did a little bit more of his high school too. They went to the college years and they went to his pro, which was I think was great. We don't know. We know some of the stories of him as a high schooler. He got cut his first 2 years, and then he comes in his junior year. Like we knew he was good, but the recruitment of that and everything else, I think that they would have touched on a little bit more of his high school years and then upbringing in that regard. I think it would have been really good. But other than that, the docu-series, very good, really great docu-series. But those are some of the key things I wish they could have touched on a little bit more.
Yeah, and they interviewed the director after the series, and I thought it was really good to hear because he talked about that time where Jordan got very emotional. Like, man, if you don't want to play like that, don't play like that. You could see that he was emotional about it, and he was like, break. So the director was like, when Michael Jordan wants a break, you give him a break. You don't press him on any pressures going forward. He also said how Jordan he drove to these interviews. It wasn't like he had an entourage, and the guy was saying that the bigger than life person of Michael Jordan came down like to earth for him. And I think that to me was the biggest part of this whole thing, is seeing Michael Jordan coming down to earth and seeing his emotions, seeing everything he went through, being able to hear his mom. So I really think they did it great. And I think there'll always be things that we'll want to know more about. And who knows if we ever get, anything going forward, but I thought it was great.
And I wanted one more. I like to know Jordan and Charles Oakley's relationship. I think Charles Oakley's one of his bodyguards too, because he's always with Jordan. Like I know they did a little bit when Oakley got traded. That was in the beginning of the docu-series, but that I would love to see that relationship, because I swear, I know they're good friends, but I think Oakley's like a bodyguard or something to Jordan because he's always with him and as Jordan's protector. So that would be another story I would love to see.
Definitely. All right, we're gonna bring it on home to the elder statesman, the Michael Jordan of the group.
Well, I echo and ditto everything that everyone said. I mean, I thought it was a great document, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being on with you guys. I mean, you guys are so knowledgeable. It's it's kind of humbling for me to be on with all of you basketball and sports scholars. So I appreciate you letting the old man hang around. But yeah, I kind of agree with Ty. It's been good to look at the role models a little bit more in depth, and also agree with my son about the aspect of his wife and his kids. I wish they could have, just tapped in that a little bit more. Because they spent a lot of time on his mother and father. But I know that even though they interviewed the children, I think in the 9.
9, yeah, it
9,
was for a short minute too.
Yeah, it was very short, and I knew the whole his commitment, his dedication to winning, really affected them, even though they turned out great, But you have to credit, his wife for that. So because he was never there, basically. So,
he was playing or on the road or playing baseball or whatever. Yeah.
So it was good for them to look at that, a little bit more in depth. But other than that, the documentary was great.
Yeah, I think it lived up. I'm not gonna say it lived up to the hype. I'm saying it exceeded the hype. I mean, there had to been. I can't wait to see the actual numbers of how many people tuned in to each episode and then to the whole documentary. It's got to be some astronomical number because people that know Jordan, that know the Bulls, even random fans had to have watched this. And winning has a price. Even Deanna Taurasi was interviewed afterwards on SportsCenter, and she said the same thing. Winning has a price. You think about Kobe. Winning has a price. Like, it is not something that's easy, and it doesn't come easy. But Ty, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, for me, what was funny is I've had so many debates and discussions about Reggie Miller all of a sudden, and people are like, I didn't know Reggie Miller was that good. I'm like, he's in the Hall of Fame. What do you mean?
Yeah, right.
He is the Pacers. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he was the Pacers, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, come on, man. It was just people I didn't realize Reggie Miller could shoot like that. I'm like, yeah, come on, this is ridiculous. It really took a documentary to realize how good Reggie Miller was, or Jordan telling you yo, this dude is good. Come on, man.
Yeah. I think people got a history lesson. A lot of youngins got a history lesson on the historical players from Ewing to Bird to all those people, Magic. So I mean, it was great. I mean, so now we don't have The Last Dance. I think the next thing coming up is Lance Armstrong, the doper. So I don't know if I'm gonna watch that or not. But I mean, all you guys have been great. We got to do this again. Let's talk as soon as we get off of here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click that bell. You guys brought it every single time, and it's grown. So appreciate you guys.
All right, no problem.
All right.
Thank you for having us on.
All right.
My pleasure.